Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Sustainable Stace. We're talking about raised garden beds. This one's just about ready to go. I'm going to explain to you why I love them so much and show you how to get 6 lasagna style layers in there to get the best possible production for your veggies. Here we go.
I'm Stacy Taves. For me, healthy food and sustainability are totally connected. You can grow it yourself. Nature is generous.
Okay guys, I just want to show you some basics to building a raised garden bed. My number one goal is get as many free supplies and materials as I can. I've got leftover lumber, and by the way, this has been out in the weather on another raised garden bed for 10 years that I just pulled down, and it's not pressure treated, so it's good to not have pressure treated lumber. This piece of wood is from a friend's sawmill, so different pieces of wood, but I've got free materials, and I just used a skill saw and a screwdriver and a sledgehammer. A sledgehammer to drive in some posts, a screwdriver to just screw the posts to my boards. Next thing beyond getting free supplies and materials is get at least 8 inches or 20 centimeters deep. I'd say that's your minimum depth to make a good raised bed, is at least a long hand span, 8 inches or 20 centimeters deep, and this is that. Then in terms of width, I don't want to go more than 5 feet or 1.5 meters. This is 4 feet wide, 1.2, 1.3 meters. This is the perfect width for a raised bed. Once you've got that set up, you're going to create layers, and I'll show you in this video how to create the best layers for lasagna style layering of what's going to be your most productive soil. Then when you've got it set up with your layers of soil, drip irrigation, and then keep the soil covered and keep off the soil. When you get all that in play, free materials, at least 8 inches deep, not more than 5 feet wide, drip irrigation, and then cover the soil and keep off the soil, you've got magic ready to go. And I'm going to show you which layers to put in to get the most productive garden bed in just a moment. Before that, I'm going to give you the reasons why I love raised garden beds so much. Let's talk about the reasons why I love them so much before we build one. Reasons that I love raised garden beds. There's so many of them, I'm just going to share a few. I think the key thing that I love most about raised garden beds is that when you build whatever structure you do to protect or hold your soil in, you've created a clear line. When you've created a clear line, you understand where to walk and you understand where to grow. And I never walk where I'm supposed to grow. That's the reason why when I build my bed, it's less than 5 feet wide, so I can reach into the middle from either side. So you got a clear dividing line. Then when you have pets or you have small children and you're trying to show them where they can go and where they can't go, that dividing line is so much easier. Some other reasons why I like raised garden beds is that when it warms up in spring, raised soil warms up quicker than growing just at grade. And so when you raise the soil, it warms up and you can start growing earlier. If you really raise garden beds, this one's not very tall, but if you really raise your garden beds, you don't have to bend over as much. And the older I get, the more attractive that sounds. I think as I get older, my beds will have higher sides. And the other thing I really like about raised garden beds is that when you get into rainy season, the raised garden beds allows the roots of the plants to drain away the extra water rather than sitting in standing water. So really good drainage as well. So many good other reasons as well. Why don't you let me know in the comment section below some of the reasons why you love raised garden beds. This little raised garden bed is kind of an experiment. It's actually one of 3 little raised garden beds where I did a tiny project and I documented on video and taught lessons around every step and stage, from figuring out where to grow the garden all the way through to harvesting every 10 days and then planting a fall garden in the same place. You can see we're coming out of fall, we're into spring now, and my garlic is going to be ready to harvest in a month. And here I've got some things that I'm saving for seeds, like some chard and some beets in the background as well. That whole project that I video documented as a tutorial on everything you need to know for a year of growing veggies is called Backyard Abundance. And if you go online to backyardabundance.ca, there you can access my entire class on how to grow veggies, so you can move from being curious to being confident with my help. Check it out. Now let's get back over to that other bed and I'll show you the 6 layers we're going to put in to get the most productive growth. Here we go. Okay, we're back inside this raised bed and we're ready to fill it up. As I mentioned, 6 layers. The first 2 layers that are going to go on the bottom are going to be cardboard. That's going to go down first, and then shredded bark chips or wood mulch, whatever you want to call it, I get from a tree service company that drops up whole truckloads for free at my place. Remember, free ingredients. The cardboard's free and the bark chips are free. Those 2 ingredients are not so much about growing the veggies on top. Those first 2 layers are mostly about suppressing what's below. You can see there's still grass here in this bed. It's under a bit of a plum tree. This historically, up until about a month ago, was a cedar hedge growing along here. There's actually big stumps right beside me that are about this big around from the cedar hedge I cut down. It was kind of a no man's land in my garden. Because of cedar hedging, this soil is going to be acidic, so we're going to have to address that because we want to sweeten up the soil and raise the pH. But we're going to start off with those 2 layers to kind of suppress and address what's below ground. We're going to put down cardboard. We're going to cover it with free bark chips. And I made sure that my bark chips don't have cedar in them because I know the guy who delivers it. It's maple and balsam, which are going to be very friendly to what's going in here. So cardboard, maple and balsam chips, and then we'll get to the next 4 layers after that and build our lasagna style bed. Okay, so now here we are up close and personal. We've got the first 2 layers in to address the weeds and try to suppress anything from underneath the garden bed that would try to come up. The cardboard's down thick and heavy, and then these bark chips. And I just wanted you to see them. They're quite finely ground, more coarse than sawdust, but they're bark chips and they're hot to the touch. They were only chopped and chipped in the last 48 hours and they're hot to the touch because it's a warm summer day and they're already decomposing. So all that heat underneath the garden is going to burn the weeds and anything that's trying to live underneath there. It's going to be like activating everything I put on top of it. Now we're going to get into the next 4 layers, and that's all going to be about pushing energy and pushing nutrition up to the top. So starting at the next layer, which is layer 3 from the bottom, but of the top 4 layers, we're going to start with things that are the least decomposed to the most decomposed, because you want your soil to be growing seeds and starts, and you can't grow that in things that are not very decomposed. You need soil, so the top layer is going to be soil. But coming now from this layer up, I'm going to put in grass clippings and chopped up weeds and things that really aren't broken down at all, but fresh grass clippings will be the main thing. Then I'm going to use compost, a variety of compost that's quite fresh, and also compost so it's got like worms in it and it's pretty active, and I got stuff that's a little more rotted, which is on the side. I've got it staged already. Then I'm going to get something more decomposed, chicken manure, right out of my chicken coop under the roosts where the chickens sleep at night. It's been sitting there for months, so it's really well rotted. So grass clippings, compost, chicken manure, and then we're going to top it with good soil. This entire bed, all the supplies, everything that's going in it, and you can see it's 30 feet long, almost 10 meters long, 1.5 meters wide. The whole project's costing me less than $100, and this is going to be enough to grow so many veggies. So let's load it up and we'll look at the keys to making this the most powerful, active way to grow your veggies. So let's go on the next layers now. So here's some chopped up grass, some weeds. None of it's really decomposing yet. It's pretty fresh still, and it's all going to get covered, remember, with compost, and it's going to get covered on the bottom layer. We could have even put sticks in as big as this. If it's down like 8 or 10 inches, it's okay. It'll just slowly over time decompose. If you get a really deep bed, you could put rounds of firewood in there and that would be fine. So all this is going to go in, and then we're going to cover it. Lots of grass clippings from cutting my grass as well. It's pretty versatile at this point what can go in. It's going to break down really nicely and it's going to give nutrition, and it's okay. It's a good thing that it breaks down at all different stages at different speeds, because that's going to keep on providing nutrition. So now I'm going to go to get more grass clippings and I'll get right back with those. You probably already have noticed that I'm not super fussy about what goes in at this stage. Anything that's going to decompose at varying rates. This is grass clippings from the past week, busted up cardboard, torn up decomposing coffee sacks. It's right now in my place, it's rhubarb season. It would totally work to, when you're harvesting rhubarb, put your rhubarb leaves in here. Anything that's just going to break down. Anything that's going to break down is going to add nutrition and life to this. Okay, we've got kind of a greens that are starting to rot layer that are in now. And now we're going to take this fairly mature compost and then top it with chicken manure. So let's get those layers in, and that's going to really see the garden bed starting to raise up. Here we go. While I was in the midst of putting this rotting compost into the bed, I just wanted to let you see what it is that's here. Like, look at all the worms that are in. I'm just finding them all through. So once we get our top layers of soil on here with chicken manure, there's, bark chips and grass and sod to go down to. there's the chicken manure and compost and soil to come up to, and it's all going to be covered with cardboard, so the worms are going to be super safe, and we're not going to walk on the bed, we're not going to compress the soil, so they're going to be nature's natural rototillers working away in here, so they're just going to populate. There's going to be a population explosion of worms in this bed in the next 30 days. It'll just be teeming with life, and they're going to make the soil even richer than it already is. Okay, that's it for the shoveling now. We've got all 6 layers of the lasagna type ingredients in our raised garden bed, and it is going to provide a lot of nutrition and growing opportunities for a lot of veg. Before we sign off, I'm just going to show you one little key on covering the soil and one little key related to laying out your veggie beds around drip irrigation, and then we'll sign off, so stay tuned for those 2 final things. So I do have a video on how to set up drip irrigation on my channel, but this isn't about that. And I do have videos about covering the soil, and this won't be about that, but I do want to just wrap up and realize again, why do I want a bed narrower than 5 feet? It's so that I can reach into it, and the smaller of a person you are, the narrower of a bed you are. But this way, I can easily reach into the middle and I'm not straining or stretching. This bed is the right width for 2 drip irrigation lines. Every 30 centimeters or every foot, there's a drip. And every hour, that drip hole will give out 1 liter of water. So for planting, you have a lot of options to do with 2 lines in a bed like this. If you're planting plants that don't mature huge, beets, leeks, carrots, chives, lettuce, you could put plantings on both sides of these drip irrigation lines and get 2 crops growing here, or 2 rows of crops here, and then on this line you could do the same. Or you could plant really large things, but only 1 row, like cabbages or potatoes or tomatoes on one line and then the same on the other. The other thing I've done is taken something fairly small on this side, something that'll grow quite big in the middle that benefits with a big root system like potatoes, and then another crop there. So 2 and 2, or 1 and 1 if they're large, or 1 and 1 and 1. You have to decide if it's 2, 3, or 4 rows of planting you're doing on the drip irrigation, but once you get it set up and all the rest of the soil is covered except for just the places where your seeds and starts go, you've got no weeding, you've got massive moisture retention, and this bed is going to be productive for years and years, and this wood will hold up, I would say, for at least 20 years. None of it's treated, it's untreated wood, some of it's cedar, some of it's not. Now, the last thing on soil coverage, let's just go to that. The number one thing that I always want to get across to anyone who I'm teaching about gardening is cover your soil. Cover your soil. Say it with me, please, people. Cover your soil. Because if you ever leave it uncovered, you're leaving it exposed to all the elements, and soil's a living thing. It's full of so much life. And if you don't cover it, it's like sending your children out the door with no clothing on. It has to be covered, or there's just something not right about what's going on in your life. So get that soil covered, and until I plant this tomorrow, it's going to go to bed knowing it's safe. And with this soil knowing it's safe, the earthworms and all the little creatures that I cannot see, which are so valuable to the soil, they know that they're safe because it's dark and it's insulated and protected for them. And because of that, they can rest easy. No stress, no fear, no danger. Cover your soil. So we're just going to wrap up like that. And that'll just hold it down so it can't blow away. If I was writing a book about how to grow veggies from scratch right through to your whole first year, this would be one chapter, and it is, because I've written the book, but it's actually a recorded video tutorial series called backyardabundance.ca, and there you can find this chapter and many more other chapters. In fact, there's 14 of them, plus celebrations every 10 days to show you how to go from Veggie Curious to Veggie Confident at backyardabundance.ca. So guys, we've shown you how to build a raised bed. It's not that hard, and man, this is going to be pumping out the veg for a long time to come. Thanks for joining me. Hey guys, and if you've been following me on YouTube today, please subscribe if you haven't already. You'll keep on getting more links that are hopeful, helpful, and healthy. See you next time.